Good afternoon, SPAC community. Thank you so much for tuning in to our talk on market data trends and analysis within the high volume photography industry. So today we're going to be really analyzing some of the data that we've seen around the industry and just kind of hopefully digging out some insights that might be useful to you all. Firstly, we're going to talk about sales trends in the industry that we've seen this year and generally what we've seen and how COVID has impacted the industry. We're then going to talk about specifically one trend we've seen around the migration from pre-order to proofing and the impact that's having on sales in the industry. And then we're going to talk about pricing. The data we have suggests there might be a real opportunity to adjust pricing and increase revenue through the pricing level. Lastly, we're going to talk about the future of data in this industry and how we see the increase in availability of data playing out in the day-to-day operation of businesses. So this is kind of the overall snapshot of 2020 in a year. And again, this is a total industry data set. It includes sports, events, underclass, seniors, across the United States and Canada. So all industry kind of verticals, all geographies come together to kind of paint this picture of overall sales volume in the industry being down around 15%. And obviously that's impacted by COVID, and obviously there's huge geographical variables from, studios who have had really good years in areas that have been less impacted by the pandemic and less shut down, to studios in kind of New York or California who have been very badly impacted by the pandemic. But across the board, across all of the industry verticals and across all the geographies that we're seeing total order volume down about 15%. Conversely, what we are seeing though is those people who are ordering are spending more. An average order value has increased about 17.5% from 2019 to 2020. So even though the average order volume has fallen across the industry, a lot of that has been made up by the people who are ordering and can get photos, them spending more every time they order. And the key that we see driving this is this shift from pre-order to proofing. Obviously with the pandemic, paper pre-order has become a very much more difficult thing to achieve through the schools. And so you've seen a migration to online. And with that migration to online, a migration away from pre-order, even online pre-order, to proofing. And a lot of what we see here is that the speed to getting photographs up and in front of parents after the shoot, the ability to have that speed be very quick has enabled people to move to a proofing model without necessarily sacrificing too much in terms of cash flow. And so this year what we've seen is pre-order volume fall about 33%, and that's the bulk of that 15% overall decline in volume that we saw across the industry. Whereas proofing has actually increased. We've seen a 3% increase in proofing orders. Clearly one doesn't offset the other, and there's still that 15% overall decline in volume through the industry. But it's interesting to see that really all that decline is happening in the pre-order space, and proofing orders have stayed relatively stable. But this shift has had a secondary impact. The impact is that it has dramatically increased the amount people spend. And what we see across the industry, and this is across years as well, this isn't just this year, is that the average order value of someone who's placing a pre-order is around $30. The average order value of someone who gets to see the photos first before ordering is more than double that, around $70. And so as orders have migrated from pre-order to proofing, that's really what's driving the higher average order that we've seen. The 17.5% increase in average order is coming from this shift from low average order pre-order orders to a much higher average value proofing order, and that is driving average order value up and offsetting the decline in the total industry's order volume. It's interesting to note that actually average order value this year in 2020 is up in both of these categories. So there's obviously a 2020 effect as well, where, with kids not being in school, with, everyone kind of being disconnected from the normal, School portraits enable people to kind of have that sense of normality, and people are spending more on them. I assume they'll also have like a larger disposable income for a lot of people because they're not going out, they're not spending money on traditional things. And so there's potentially more savings and just more available wallet there to have as well. So we see both pre-order and proofing average orders increase in 2020, but the main driver of the overall average order increase is the shift from the lower average pre-order to the higher average proofing. And now we're going to talk about pricing. So once people have migrated from a pre-order to a proofing model and are spending that much more, how potentially is there opportunity to further increase that spend and further increase the revenue of your studio? And these are the three takeaways that we get from the research. Studios that offer more products on their price sheet and more categories have higher revenue. Studios that include digital products in more SKUs on their price sheet, so whether that's package that includes digital download or just more digital download options, maybe different resolution sizes for social or for print, they have higher revenue. And there's also an indication that school photography in high volume spaces is potentially quite price inelastic, and therefore there might be an element of pricing that is too low in this industry, an opportunity for addressing that by raising prices of products and packages. This is the first correlation that we saw across the data, is that the order totals and the revenue of a studio is very highly correlated to the number of SKUs offered on a price sheet. So that 0.613, essentially for every SKU you offer, your average order should go up about 61 cents. And the R-square of this is very strong as well. So the correlation is pronounced. You would expect to see an increase in your order value if you added more SKUs and categories to your price sheet and offered parents more choice and more things that they can buy. It may sound like common sense, but you offer more things to buy and often people will buy them. Interestingly, it's not cannibalizing other sales. When you add more things, it's the trend is not that people spend the same and just choose different things. They actually buy more. And so that's an interesting trend to see across all the data. The second correlation is a slightly weaker correlation, but it's still very much there in terms of the strength of the data, is that digital SKUs correlate very strongly with monthly order volume as well. And by when we say monthly order volume, this is the amount of money taken. So here, we would expect for every digital SKU offered, that you would see about a 39-cent increase in your average order value. So, again, more products with digital elements, those two things should increase average order value, and the trend is very strong here in the data that we see. Lastly, there is a trend here that says that we may be on the inelastic side of the demand curve for pricing of products in this space. A couple of caveats here right out of the gate. This is completely geographically and product generalized data. This is the entire data set of the industry that we have available. It is across all geographies, across all products, underclass, seniors. So don't necessarily take the exact price points to be a guide. This really is a directional indicator of potentially where average pricing in the industry sits compared to where average willingness to spend might be. So the current average SKU price, the average price of a product or package across all price sheets in the industry that we see is $50. However, given the distribution of order value and spend, the willingness to pay seems to be much higher, and the revenue maximizing price seems to be around $90. Again, caveat, this is an average across all geographies, across all products, across all industry verticals. But definitely the discrepancy between those two would seem to indicate that pricing of products and packages in the industry is definitely on the inelastic side of the demand curve. There is less response in terms of decline in sales volume to the corresponding increase in price. And so increasing prices, you will see potentially lower buy rates, but the increase in price will more than offset, much more than offset, the small decline in buy rate you'll see from increasing prices. And so revenue maximization is still some way distant in terms of a higher price point. And directionally, we would say that there's potentially opportunity here to increase prices and see revenue maximization from increasing prices. Theoretically, and again, based on these averages, an increase in average SKU price to that $90 mark would increase revenue in the entire industry by about 25%. So this is not an insignificant amount of opportunity here that might be being left on the table. So, to summarize, we strongly recommend people consider moving from a pre-order to a proofing model. Average order values with a proofing model over double what they are with pre-orders. If people get the chance to see the photograph, they spend more money on it. Investigate additional product category options and investigate adding more digital SKUs to your price sheets. We see a very strong correlation between these two things and increases in order value. Lastly, really explore the opportunity for price increases across your products and packages. Clearly, this isn't going to be accurate for everyone. And not everyone in different geographies or serving different demographics are going to have opportunities to maximize revenue through pricing. But from what we've seen from the data, the average in the industry is definitely on the inelastic side of the demand curve, meaning that an increase in pricing should offset any corresponding decline in buy rate. And there is an opportunity out there in the marketplace for prices to go up and revenue to be maximized through increasing prices, and it's definitely something to explore. I think you've seen how powerful data can be in this industry. And when you aggregate data, the kind of directional trends it can show and potential movements that you can make as a studio to maximize revenue from what the data is telling you. We think this is going to have a much more profound impact on this industry as we move forward and as data becomes more available. In our organization, we present data quarterly to our studios through what we call a QBR, a quarterly business review. And you can see this an example one on the screen right now. Touching all the key areas and all the key metrics that a studio needs to see in order to make decisions around their business, pricing, profitability in one sheet. As this industry evolves, and as more sales become more technologically sophisticated, I think what we're going to see is a much more data-driven strategic direction for the industry and corresponding increases in revenue from the decisions you can make from that data. I'm really excited to answer questions about all of this. And we've kind of kept this a little bit short just so we have plenty of time to answer questions and dig into some of the ideas that have been generated from this data. So with that, over to you guys. Really excited to continue the conversation. Thanks.